What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Tinted Visors Podcast, coming back at you with episode 27. Today, we're going to start off by recapping the first half of the round 3 matchups. Then, we're going to get into the off-season previews for the 5 bottom teams. We're going to look at how their season went, and then we're going to look ahead towards their off-season. And finally, as always, we're going to end with some trivia. That being said, let's get this thing going.
I don't be getting my flowers. You really thought she would be sweet.
Before we get going, we're going to do card of the day as always. Sticking with the playoff trend, I'm going to go with the guy out of Dallas. We're going to go with the Sam Steele Future Watch Auto, number to 999. Became a fan of his back in his junior days, tore up the WHL as well as with Team Canada. Couldn't really stick with Anaheim, had one season in Minnesota, and now he's with Dallas on their fourth line, becoming a pretty good player for them. Hopefully he re-ups with them. But super nice card. Really simple design. I really like the 18-19 Future Watch. Caden, you've got Svechnikov. I've got Sorelli as well. Just very simple. And then the blue auto obviously looks great. Great card. Sam Steele Future Watch Auto.
Yeah, clean card. Especially love that alternate jersey look. And yeah, turning into one of the many solid depth pieces on this Dallas team. I'm not going to stick with the playoff trend. We're going with a player who got knocked out in the first round. One of my favorite players. It's a Bo Horvat Heroes and Prospects game used patch, and it actually is one of one in the bottom right corner. There's a couple variations that are one of ones out there, so I don't think it's like a true one of one. But yeah, super cool card. I was very happy to pick this up. A card from Horvat's junior days, kind of a little bit harder to find compared to the rookie and younger cards. But yeah, sweet card, one of the favorites I have in my collection. 3-color patch does it all for me. So yeah, just diving into the content today, we're going to start with the playoffs. Round 3, we're about halfway through the series. We'll start in the East, Kenny. Rangers Cats currently tied at 2-2. What have you thought of this series so far?
Yeah, it's been a great series so far. Obviously, very close. The last 3 games going to overtime. Rangers coming out with 2 of those wins. Florida coming out with the latest, tying things up, going back to New York. Pretty good all around. I think a lot of the big boys are stepping up. Obviously Florida's got Kachuk, Barkov, and Verhage. Bobrovsky hasn't been playing that bad either. He's got the 1 game under 800 save percentage, which didn't help them there. But he's got a shutout in game 1 and a bunch of very solid performances all around. Looking across the ice, Shesterkin's having a great series as well. Getting pretty much shelled out there the past couple games. It's been very Florida dominant so far. So Rangers are lucky to be tied up right now. And if they can get back to that round 1 form or even early round 2 form, they can make some serious noise. But so far, no complaints here. It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, been a super even series. And yeah, Igor's been lights out, just doing what he does. And yeah, just something to note, before game 4, Philip Hedl was taken out of the lineup and replaced with Blake Wheeler, who went on to take a crucial penalty. Partial break for Barkov, Wheeler hooked him, and the Panthers would go on to win on the ensuing power play. Just a storyline to watch heading into Game 5. Going to be interesting to see if he is able to stick in that lineup or if he is taken out in favor of Hedl going back to New York.
Moving on to the Western Conference, only 3 games played so far. Dallas is up 2-1 with Edmonton looking to tie it up later tonight. Stuart Skinner, yeah, he had a rough game 3, but he's had a very solid series so far. Both first games, very solid performances. Looking up front, though, Draisaitl's only got 1 point so far in the 3 games. Bouchard's only got 2. I know it's not like it's zeros, but with those guys, being who they are, they would expect a little more from them. Jason Robertson with probably the game of the series so far with a hat trick in game 3. And Rupe Hintz coming back with 2 assists in his first game. Really, really good bounce back game after injury. And Jake Oettinger, lowest save percentage of the series so far is a 921, and he'll need to continue that if they want to get the next 2 wins and move on to the final.
Yeah, Ottinger stepping up huge when it matters most, trying to, will his team into that Stanley Cup final, and they're playing really well in front of him. Dallas plays a very disciplined brand of hockey, and Edmonton is struggling to adjust. The power play has gone quiet with, limited chances. So yeah, look at Draisaitl and Bouchard to, maybe get going if they get a power play opportunity next game. But yeah, it's been tough for them 5-on-5. We'll see if they can adjust before this series is over.
Any changes to your prediction? You still have Florida and Dallas in the final?
Yeah, I'm going to say Florida, Dallas. How are you feeling about that Rangers pick?
I'm sticking with them. I think, they've been lucky to come out 2-2, but once they get their game back, I think they'll be a real problem. So I still got Rangers going up against Dallas. Just moving on, we are getting a little ahead of ourselves talking about off-season already, but we did want to touch on the bottom five teams, which would be San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim, Columbus, and Montreal. And interestingly enough, they are the bottom five teams from the year before as well. So obviously not much improvement on any of their sides. But starting with San Jose, 32nd overall, they were 19, 54, and 9. Pretty abysmal record. But looking at the roster, you couldn't really expect much. They do end up winning the first overall pick, which will most likely be Macklin Celebrini. And they do sign Will Smith. They convince him to turn pro after he did commit to go back to BC for a year. But that'll be a very, very solid 1-2 punch. They got a lot of other young players. William Eklund took a big step forward this year. I would say there's a lot to be excited about in the city of San Jose.
Yeah, we might not see immediate improvement next year, but with the expectation that they are going to draft Celebrini, this young core is going to be super exciting next year. Will Smith, like you said, Celebrini himself, even William Eklund, like you mentioned as well, super big year, still young, super exciting player. They even managed to land the biggest college free agent this past year, signing Colin Graff. So this young core is starting to shape up nicely. I don't think they're anywhere close to contention, obviously, and they may very well be in the bottom five again next year. But they will be an exciting team to watch. Gonna watch their young guys get some ice time. And yeah, should be a fun year in San Jose.
Yeah, it'll be fun. They've done a pretty good job of offloading some of those tough contracts like Eric Carlson's, Brent Burns, Thomas Hurdle, and bringing in young guys. Philip Bystead was a former first-round pick. Bordeleau has really, been pretty consistent in the NHL. Edstrom came in with that Hurdle trade. Mukamu Dallin with the Timo Meyer trade. They've got a plethora of young talent. Like we said, they won the first overall pick. They've also got the 14th overall, so they can draft another young player there.
Logan Couture, their captain, I think he said he wants to play meaningful hockey. He did only manage to get out on the ice this year for 6 games. So it is a big contract, $8 million AAV. So we'll see if they can find a suitor for him in order for him to, chase a Stanley Cup.
Moving on to the 31st team in the league, we have Chicago Blackhawks. They went 23, 53, and 6. Actually did worse than they did last year when they won first overall. And a lot of fans were happy that they did not win first again, although it would have been cool to see Celebrini and Bedard on the same team. They've got a lot of promise on that roster. Obviously, Connor Bedard probably going to win the Calder, but you've got Lucas Reichel taking the slower development route. I think they'd like a little more from him. Frank Nazar got into a couple games. Moore was a former first-round pick. They've also got Nolan Allen on defense, Del Maestro, Sam Rinzel, Kevin Korchinski. I mean, there's just so many young guys to be excited about on the Chicago team.
Yeah, this team is absolutely loaded with young talent, and you're only going to add a number 2 overall pick into the mix. A lot of fans are calling for them to take a defenseman, but in my opinion, I don't think you go for positional need over, best player available, especially at number 2 in the draft. I would love to see them draft Ivan Demidov. I think he's going to be an absolute stud in the league. I really hope they don't go defenseman, but we'll see at the draft. But yeah, future's super bright in Chicago. Like San Jose, we might not see immediate improvement next year, but there is so much young talent to be excited for if you're a Blackhawk fan.
Yeah, going to be an exciting draft. They got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds. Going to pick up a lot of prospects. Taylor Hall's got 1 year left at $6 million, so maybe they re-up him. They did the same with Nick Foligno in the middle of last season, so maybe they keep him as a veteran. Philip Kurashev's got 1 year left at $2.25 million. He had a very good season, so they're probably going to give him an extension. Peter Mrazek's got 2 years left. He had a very solid season considering how bad they were defensively. He really stepped up for them and actually stole them a couple games. But yeah, like you said, a lot to be happy with in the city of Chicago. Moving up in the standings, we have the Anaheim Ducks, who actually improved from last season. They went 27, 50, and 5. Secured the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and they were involved in probably one of the biggest trades of the season, bringing in Cutter Gauthier to add to a very solid young forward core with Leo Carlsson, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Mason McTavish. I mean, the list just goes on. On defense, you got guys like Owen Zellweger, Minchukov, Helleson, Luneau. I mean, this team, all around the depth chart, they have very solid prospects. Lucas Dostal had a very good World Championship performance with Czechia, so hopefully he can bring that momentum into the season. But they do have John Gibson with 3 years left on his deal, so maybe they move him out and make room for Dostal to take that starting role.
Yeah, super interesting offseason ahead for Anaheim. It seems like John Gibson has been in the rumor mill for like who knows how long. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to move on from him this offseason. I think the biggest suitor would either be the Edmonton Oilers if they get bounced and decide, Stuart Skinner isn't the answer. Or even the Toronto Maple Leafs have their goalies are pending UFAs, so maybe they'll decide to acquire Gibson. No real notable pending UFAs or RFAs for the Ducks. The one to note is Frank Vetrano, who has 1 year left on his deal. Was in the rumor mill a bit last year. He'll want an extension, had a really good year. We'll see if there's interest on both sides in him staying. Who knows if the Ducks have the means to keep him, but he is, somewhat young enough to stick around. But he may want to play on a contender and chase a cup. But yeah, for Anaheim, you talk about a loaded prospect pool. This is it right here. Arguably the best prospect pool in the league.
Yeah, with guys like Katagoche coming in, Trevor Zegras may be on his way out. I don't know. He had a lot of rumors during the season. A lot of people saying they were unhappy on both sides of it. Kind of died down recently, though, so I would assume that he stays. He's got 2 more years left on his deal. And then another guy with 1 year left on his deal, Mason McTavish. He'll probably go for a big extension soon. Maybe they go bridge deal, but I would assume probably like an 8 year deal to lock him up for good. One question I have for you, lots of good leaders on that Anaheim team. They are captainless right now. Maybe give it to Cam Fowler, maybe give Troy Terry, maybe Mason McTavish. Caden, who do you think is the next captain of the Anaheim Ducks?
It's a good question, really, and I think if they wanted to assign a captain for the upcoming season, I think the only right answer would be Cam Fowler. He's been there the longest, super steady defenseman on the blue line, and provides a veteran presence in that locker room. I think if anyone, it's Cam Fowler, but if they wanted to wait, I think it could go to Troy Terry or even Mason McTavish.
Yeah, like you said, if it's right away, they got to give it to Fowler. But looking long term, I could see Mason McTavish being, captain material and being, the leader of that team. Once again, moving up in the standings, we have in 29th position the Columbus Blue Jackets, who finished 27, 43, and 12. Also an improvement of last year. They got a lot of young guys already on their roster, like Adam Fantilli, Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, even David Yurchek, and Boqvist is still young as well. And then a lot of good prospects as well. Jordan Dumais tore it up in the QMJHL, had some issues this season with obviously that arrest and then with injury as well. But also have Gavin Brindley, who made his NHL debut, who's a good prospect, and Denton Matejchuk, who is currently in the Memorial Cup. And as a defenseman, he has 100 points in the regular season and playoffs combined, which is just an incredible feat. They are going to be good in a couple years, and they will be good for a long time.
Yeah, let's talk about Columbus drafting really quick. A guy like Matejchuk wasn't at the top of draft boards, wasn't in the top 10. Columbus managed to snag him a bit later in the first. Even Jordan Dumais, ripping up the queue like you mentioned. He was like a second or third round pick, falling down draft boards because of his size. Columbus decided to take that chance. And yeah, reoccurring theme with these bottom teams is they have some loaded prospect pools and young guys already in the league. A few pending RFAs for them. Chinikov, Marchenko both had, some solid years, some good depth pieces there. Alexander Nylander as well, came in at the deadline and played really well for them. He's going to want a bag. And yeah, Cole Sillinger, Alexander Texier, don't think it's going to be a lot of money. Just some younger guys who need some contracts. But yeah, their defensive signings are going to start to shoot them in the foot moving forward as they look to sign some of their bigger stars to extensions. Eric Branson's making $4 million. Even Damon Severson, who they traded for, is making $6.2 million and was on a 7 year deal. Yeah, it's gonna suck for Columbus when these contracts kind of start to, bite them in the ass.
Yeah, a lot on defense, but even somebody you haven't touched on, Johnny Gaudreau, that's a big contract. Patrick Laine, 8.7 mil, limited to 18 games this year. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with him. Maybe they can offload him. Maybe they got to add a sweetener or retain something. I think his time in Columbus is done. And then Merzlikins, $5.4 million cap hit. With the numbers he had, that's just not worth it as a goalie. I think he wants out. I think the team wants the same thing. Tarasov, the backup, he's only 25 years old, so maybe he could get a shot at the starter position. But yeah, there's a lot of long-term high cap deals in Columbus that will need to be moved out to make way for these young prospects. Last team we're going to touch on is the Montreal Canadiens, who finished 30, 37, 36 and 16, and they're going to secure the 5th overall pick for the second year in a row. I think they were expecting a little bit more, but after being dealt with so many injuries, I think they're pretty satisfied with how they finished. The big story coming out of there was Slavkovsky finally breaking out. It took a lot of flack after last season. A lot of it was undeserved as he was just, a first overall pick. So I don't know why he got so much hate, but he's really breaking out with that line of him, Suzuki, and Caulfield, and those three are going to feed families in Montreal for a long time. But touching on their prospects, they got a lot of upside. Joshua Roy, playing in the AHL, had a few NHL games. Lane Hudson got that deal signed at the end of the season, got into a couple games. Ryan Bacher, Logan Mailloux, Philip Mazar, a lot of former first-round picks, and a lot of potential in those players.
Yeah, Montreal is loaded with the prospects, and I think overall this season can be considered a win. Like you said, the emergence of Slavkovsky, but also the emergence of Mike Matheson, kind of establishing himself as a number one D man, played really well this year. And even Sam Montembeault as the starter in net, very solid. I think he does have the potential to, have a very elite season moving forward. But yeah, like you said, Slavkovsky, Suzuki, Caulfield is going to be one of the best lines in this league once they hit their prime for years to come.
Just a couple RFAs that they have. Arbor Xhekaj. I'm not sure. He'll probably go for a bridge deal. He was out of the lineup for a little bit, so I doubt they're going to sign him long term. And then Guhle and Slavkovsky each have 1 year left on their deal. I would assume that they're going to try to get those guys locked up. But again, a bridge deal is always an option. An interesting prospect for them is Jacob Fowler, a goalie who was drafted last year, had a very good season at Boston College, and could be the goalie of their future. But yeah, overall, Montreal had a very good season, and they have a lot of prospects that are just going to add and improve them as a team.
So, quick question for you here, Kenny. If you are the GM of the Montreal Canadiens, with Slavkovsky being the pending RFA after this next season, have you seen enough to offer him an extension right now? And how much would you offer to lock him up?
Personally, I haven't seen enough, but there's so many other cases in the NHL where you've seen as much as you have with him, and they sign them to 8 year deals. So I could see if it was an 8 year deal, it would have to be in the $7 or $8 million range. That's just what he would have to settle for. But as the GM, you'd want him for a little lower than that. I think personally, I would go for a bridge deal, 1, maybe 2 years at $2 or $3 million. Really sort of establish him as a consistent scorer, because all you have right now is one off year and one good year. That's not enough consistency for me. I would want to get a bridge deal, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lock him up to an 8 year deal. But yeah, guys, that wraps up that segment. It ended up being mostly about prospects, but we did want to touch on the bottom 5 teams, and we will touch on them again once we do off-season sort of divisional outlooks once the Stanley Cup Finals wrap up. But let us know what you guys think. Let us know which prospect pool and which teams you're excited to see in the next coming years. A lot of very young, good players that are going to enter in this league, and it's going to be very exciting to watch. But moving on, we are at the trivia part of the episode. Caden, I will go first. I have a guess the player with 3 simple hints.
Sure.
It might be really easy, but it could be pretty tricky. We'll see how you do.
Sure,
the first hint is he was a top 10 pick coming out of the London Knights.
Okay.
He was point per game this year.
Okay.
And in the playoffs, he is 3rd on his team in points.
Top 10 pick out of the London Knights. First thought, of course, it's Bo Horvat. But I don't think he was point per game this year. I think he was just under. Take a guess here. When you think of the London Knights, you think of, Max Domi, Mitch Marner, Bo Horvat for me. But, I think one name that, might fly under the radar, I think this guy played for the London Knights. Can I get Matthew Tkachuk?
He is first on the Panthers in points.
Okay.
You scared me for a second. I thought I messed up there.
I was like, oh.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess.
I don't even remember this guy even playing for the London Knights, if it is this guy. I'm pretty sure he went 10th or 9th. But yeah, he's behind 2 of the best players in the world. Is it Evan Bouchard?
There you go. Nice. It is Evan Bouchard. That is a good guess. I tried to trip you up with point per game this season because that's an incredible feat as a defenseman. But there you go. Yeah, he's 3rd on the team. He's 3rd in the NHL in points. but because he's on Edmonton, he is behind Draisaitl and McDavid. But yeah, good guess. There you go.
I actually also have a guess the player with 3 hints. So the first hint is that he is a former Hart Trophy winner. The second hint is he has played for teams in all 4 divisions. And finally, he is a former top 10 pick. This might be too easy, especially with your draft knowledge, but
Okay, Hart is MVP, right?
yeah.
Okay, all 4 divisions. I'm just making sure. I have a guy in mind. I don't know if I think he
Okay.
applies all of it.
Okay.
Is it Taylor Hall?
It is Taylor Hall. I think the Hart Trophy hint was too easy, wasn't it?
I think it was a little too easy. Yeah, I think that's what gave it away. And then, yeah, I did check out the teams, but yeah.
I was hoping you'd forget about Taylor Hall because that's like the most random Hart Trophy winner I think ever.
Uh-huh.
Such a random year.
Next question I got for you: of the remaining 4 teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs, can you give me the leading goal scorer for each team?
Okay, so Dallas Stars will go with Wyatt Johnston.
That is correct. There you
Okay. Edmonton Oilers, Zach Hyman.
Probably the easiest one. Yep.
Yeah.
Zach Hyman there. 13 goals.
Florida Panthers, I still want to say Carter Verhaeghe.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Carter Verhaeghe.
And then finally the New York Rangers, Chris Kreider.
It's not Chris Kreider. It's a very close race. It is Vincent Trocheck.
Oh, I completely forgot about Vinny T. Actually, he's having
It's 8 goals and 7 goals. It's so close. But
he's having a great run. Hey, I have a career path for you. He's retired in 2015. Phoenix Coyotes, Florida Panthers, Vancouver Canucks, Minnesota Wild.
I don't know his first name.
There's no way you already got it.
His last name White?
No.
No?
Point. He was on the team, the Canucks 2011 team.
I'm just trying to think of the depth guys. Lapierre, Torres, Higgins. Can I get the position?
He was a defenseman.
Damn it. Okay, I don't know. I know the top 6. Ehrhoff, Gexa, Hamhughes, Edler. Sammy Salo, maybe. The depth guys.
Do you want another hint?
Sure.
I remember this guy throwing some like mean hip checks.
Oh my god, I know what it is.
Off that?
Is it Keith Ballard?
It is Keith Ballard. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. With all the playoff hockey going on, it's fun covering it, but it was a little refreshing to, talk about something other than the playoffs.
We'll see you guys next week, and until then, take care.
I don't be getting my flowers. You really thought she would be sweet. It's a whole nother level of sour.